Welcome to the second installment of Superintendent Spotlight, a program that will cover the people and programs of the West Bridgewater Public Schools. Today, I'm lucky enough to have two guests who are in charge of two new programs that we started in our elementary school for the 16-17 school year. We have Amy Quealy, who currently is our ESL director and also an ESL teacher, and she'll be teaching our new foreign language program in the elementary school. We also have Jeremy Dempsey, who last year was the second grade teacher at the Rose McDonald School, and this year he's piloting our STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, grades K through 5. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So Amy, why don't we start with you?
Sure.
Why do you feel, you and Mary Pistorino came to me a while ago and talked about getting foreign language in the elementary school. So what's the importance of having a foreign language program in the elementary grades?
Mary Pistorino, she's the head of the World Language Department in West Bridgewater, and she and I collaborated and talked about getting getting language at the elementary level, particularly because it's so important at that young age before puberty. Research shows that students will learn the language authentically, like a native speaker. And also the cultural aspect, just like science and technology, engineering and math, it's a global 21st century skill, as is language and multiculturalism. These students here in West Bridgewater and all over are going to be competing with the global population. And historically, in the United States, we really haven't done a great job at getting our kids to learn language, and they'll do it when they're that age, and the kids are so excited about it. And already I was told today that they're greeting their teachers in Spanish, so I was
Nice.
really happy.
That's great. And Jeremy, we've always taught science in the elementary classrooms when the time, teachers had time to do that. But now we're going to have a whole special that's STEM. So why do you think that's important in the elementary schools?
I think it's important because when I was growing up in science, a lot of times it was kind of dry. It was straight out of a textbook, and we were kind of reading it, and we didn't always really have that deep conceptual understanding of what was going on because it was just words on a page. And now we can actually get our hands on it and really get into the topic and be like, oh, okay, so air resistance, what is this? I can actually see it. I can make a parachute and drop a little army man to the floor and watch it float down. I can make twirly birds and watch the propeller spin as it floats to the ground. I can really see it and actually get a better understanding of what's going on. And it can kind of free up the classroom teacher to broaden their scope, and then I can kind of bring it into my classroom and kind of get really dirty with it. And so that way it kind of enables us to broaden our understanding of science through creating different avenues to kind of have the kids understand what's going on.
So we can really add more of the hands-on that we've probably, honestly, been lacking in our science program.
Yeah, and a lot of that too just happens to be with now, like where a classroom teacher has to fit so many things into their classroom. Now I can take at least some of those experiments out and have it in one classroom and get really dirty and take up a lot of space with it, where they just didn't really have that space before.
Right, right. No, that's great. So give me an idea of what are the types of things you'll be doing this year with foreign language?
Okay, so just to go off of what Jeremy was saying, I think with world language and with science and technology, it gives us the opportunity to do a lot of cross-curricular activities, and I think that's what's great about West Bridgewater is that we're able to collaborate a lot. So for instance, if they're learning something in science, I could teach them the vocabulary, the science vocabulary in Spanish or French. Initially, when we're introducing the language this year, we'll have a lot of fun projects on Spanish and French speaking countries. We'll learn a lot about cultural aspects, food, music, dance. We want to make it really fun. The kids are excited about learning. Today they learned how to say their name, and they picked a Spanish name. We'll do, the introduction with numbers and colors, letters, but I really want it to be conversational, and I want them to have practice using the language and, learning more about the culture and embed that, maybe in some cross-curricular areas too.
Now, you talked about Spanish. Will you also?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Introduce
just
French
started with
also?
Spanish, so that's
Yeah.
fresh in my mind. So I'll do the first half of the year, probably through January in Spanish, and then probably January through the end of the year, we'll do French. I want them really to have, equal amount of time in both languages, so when they get up to the upper grades, they could even take 2 languages at that point. So yeah, both languages all year long, and we'll do the same probably in each language.
That's great.
It's fun.
And so, Jeremy, what are some of the things you'll be doing this year? What's the focus of STEM this year?
Well, we really want to get our hands on a whole broad aspect of it. So when we talk about, we're like, well, we're doing science, but we're also doing technology, and we're also doing engineering and math. And then we're also incorporating some of the arts into this. So one of the things I know in the high school that they've done is they've kind of started a project where they create guitars. Well, down at the elementary level, we're also going to be doing a more simplistic version of creating guitars out of Kleenex boxes and paper towel tubes and rubber bands. And then at the lower levels, we'll even make kazoos and talk about, well, how is this sound happening and vibrations. And then we'll also look at engineering. We're going to create some structures, depending on what happens with the snow this year. We'll get more elaborate, but we'd like to build some igloos potentially, and then talk about radiant and convective heat and see how that works. And then even how is the best structure to create something like that? What shape should it be, and why would we pick that shape? And so why would you pick a dome instead of a box? What are the potential problems we could have with that? And really what I'm trying to do with our students is get them to be the critical thinkers and dissect the problem. I'm going to present the problem to them, and I want them to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to take these tools and run with it. So just for example, today we were just talking about how am I going to get a balloon from one end of the room to the next, the quickest and fastest possible way. Am I going to take it and throw the balloon? Well, that doesn't work. Am I going to take it and blow the balloon up and let it go? Well, sometimes we don't know what's going to happen there. And then I'm like, well, what happens if we take a straw, some tape, and a ball of yarn and add this to the mix? Will that help us at all? And then let them run with it and see, as they experiment and do hands-on things, eventually they will solve that problem. So it's more me kind of shepherding them, but they are the critical thinkers that are expanding their minds to figure these things out. And I think that's one of the pluses of this program, and it gets them to have to do all the critical thinking.
So really, they will be investigating, both the scientific method and the design process through different projects.
Yeah.
Really, then it will become second nature to them to be scientific thinkers in everything that they try to solve.
Exactly, broaden it across the scope. That's why it's STEM and it's not just science, because they can apply this to every aspect of what they're learning. So that way they're not expecting you to spoon feed them something. They're going to be able to critically think and come up with these ideas on their own to become more independent thinkers.
So how do you think foreign language at younger grades, and I know we're just scratching the surface, but we're finally getting it down to 6th grade, and I know that in the future we're thinking of maybe with a different model, but bringing it into 4th and 5th grade eventually. How do you think, what will it do for them as high school students? How do you think it will help our high school program?
Well, just like Jeremy said too, I think multiculturalism and multilingualism becoming second nature is so important, especially at the secondary level, because our suburban population is diversifying, and we're becoming, which is so great, much more multicultural than in years past. And I think, we can embed that into the curriculum, especially, in sciences and in history. I mean, we can embed that. We can actually do classes. If kids, it takes about 5 to 7 years actually to become fully competent, and sometimes people misinterpret competency and fluency. Fluency is when you know a language, you can read a language, but competency is when you really know the nuances of the culture as well. And I think that's been missing historically in the US. So starting it at such a young age, they're going to get the cultural aspect as well as the language, and that's going to carry through to the secondary level. And hopefully, I think parents would be so excited that their students would really come out of high school being fully bilingual and advanced. We call it advanced proficiency. Research shows that most high school, no matter where a student goes, high school graduates are still at the novice level. And the novice level is maybe being somewhat communicative, but not being truly fluent and competent. By starting it at the elementary level, our kids will come out with true fluency, and they'll be able to study, cross-curricularly at the college level in another language, and that's so exciting to me.
That's great.
Yeah, very exciting.
Jeremy, what do you hope that your kids at the elementary school come out with once they go through all the years of having STEM now?
I really hope that they'll be excited about science. They'll be excited about learning. I think part of this program is when they can get their hands on something and that really get into it, that it makes it more exciting for them. And so then they can be more independent thinkers, and they can really have a focus of what they're really, what they want to achieve, and become just lifelong learners and help to instill that in them. I see in the past, I've seen students who, they get deflated when they're like, oh, I don't want to go to school today. I'm hoping that this will be one of those programs, along with learning a foreign language, that can really reinvigorate students about school and have them excited to learn and see that it's more than just a textbook.
So following up on that then, give me some examples of how you're going to get kids excited about science, tech, engineering, and mathematics.
Well, one example would be one of the first questions of the kids coming in today is like, are we going to blow things up? So, of course, the first thing I did is blow something up, So it's like, yeah, of course we're going to do that. And then it's just going out and having adventures. We're going to go out and we're going to test our limits to see what we can achieve with our education. We're going to go out and we're going to examine nature. We're going to go out and see what all around us is science. And then we're going to go out and we're going to perform experiments. We're going to build rockets. We're going to create hot air balloons. We're going to just test the dynamics of what all is around us to really get us excited about learning, to make it more fun, really.
And show them really that science is everything.
Exactly, everywhere. Yeah, exactly. Just today we were talking about gravity, and we were having our little experiment of jumping. I was like, all right, so let's go over here on this side of the classroom. Let's jump. Everybody jump. All right, now everybody come over on this side of the classroom. Let's jump. Everybody jump. Now, did you jump higher over here than you did over here? And then we have a slanted roof, and so some people said, well, yeah, over here you didn't jump as high because you didn't get as close to the roof, versus over here you jumped higher because you're close to the roof. And then the students were able to come up with the idea of, oh no, we jumped the same height, but the roof's lower over here. So really, they were able to figure that out. And then through jumping around, they were able to figure out gravity's all around us. Gravity is the same everywhere. So it was little things like that you can just help think about things that you never thought about before and have a scientific mind about it.
So it's really inquiry based, and I mean, basically kids are very inquisitive. It's just somehow, in what we had, I know when I was growing up in the old times of schooling, we squelched that a lot, and then push them into just a textbook and say, memorize this content, and I think they lose the enthusiasm. I was very fortunate. It's kind of funny because, in the old days, I was a teacher of science. So I was a high school science teacher. I was a science major in college. And I got the love for science because I was very fortunate that where I went to elementary school, we had an elementary science program. And it wasn't just within our classroom. It was an actual science teacher who was a person who used to teach at the high school chemistry, and she moved to the elementary, and we actually had like a special like you were doing, and once a week we had science. And so when we had time that we had some free time, we'd go down, and I spent more time in her class and helped her with other things, and it really did spark my interest in science. So getting it younger really does make a difference, and unfortunately, when budgets got cut with Proposition 2.5, that system had to get rid of their science elementary and stuff, but it really was something that was a great program. So that's the other reason I'm really excited about putting it in West Bridgewater, because I know that kids are going to love that and say, I really love science, instead of, I don't like science, and as I talked about at my opening day, well, you don't like science yet, but wait until you see what I'm going to teach you, and then you're going to love science. So, Amy, what are you going to do to get kids excited about foreign language? Because some kids are going to be like, foreign language? Why the heck do I have to have that?
I know, they're not excited yet. But I think they are, because they're starting to see, especially at our secondary level, we have such an awesome world language program. Last year, we brought 43 students from China here to visit West Bridgewater, and we actually had them come over to the elementary schools, and we have that again this year. We're having students from France come to visit us, and we're also having students from Costa Rica. So now these kids kids at the elementary level will be able to share what they've learned with actual kids from Spanish or French-speaking countries. So I think knowing that they can actually use the language to be resourceful in the world. And a lot of technology. We're doing Duolingo competitions. There's a website called duolingo.com, and I have all of the kids sign up for an account, and you can do Spanish and French and earn lingots, which are like coins in a video game, and the kids are so excited. We're going to have a competition all term to see what student earns the most lingo. So you can make it exciting, just like with science and technology. And I think years ago back in school we learned the rote behavioral method of language. Memorize, conjugate the verbs. That's not how we can teach it anymore. We really have to be making it meaningful, and kids don't want to use a language if it's not meaningful to them. So connecting it to what they're doing in life and in school, I think is so important, and using it and having those interactions with real native speakers like the students from Costa Rica or France will be so meaningful. And they'll never forget when the Chinese students came over to my classroom, or the students from Costa Rica. So we've been very fortunate to have those programs.
It's interesting to see the parallels between, even though it's two completely different subjects, the parallels of we really want them to learn the language of science in a different language, and that you had said they don't want to learn a language if it's not meaningful to them. Well, they don't want to learn science if it's not meaningful, and you talked about, let's show them that it's part of life. Let's show them that it's the human body, that they go outside, that it's nature, that's all that stuff. So it's really all about that connecting to real life and that authentic learning. So, and that's really just good teaching, and that's getting kids engaged and excited about it. And I know when we discussed last year about what we should put in these specials and how we should do this, a number of things came up, and I'm really excited that the STEM worked out and that the foreign language worked out. So if there was one thing that you could tell the kids and parents out there about your foreign language class, what would it be? Put you on the spot first. I'm going to ask you next.
I know. It's going to be a fun and exciting way to learn a second language that you'll carry with you throughout your life. And I think something that you can carry with you throughout your life is an awesome skill to give a child. I mean, not everything do we always remember that we learned. We always remember the teacher who we loved and instilled that in us. So I think it'll be a real fun and exciting way to carry language with you throughout your career and hopefully your life.
So come ready. Have you seen all the 6th grade yet?
I have not. Yesterday was the first day, so a little hectic on the first day, so I wasn't able. I introduced myself, and they were so excited. They came in to hear, they just want to learn that language. It's so exciting for them. But today I had a full class, and one of the teachers, Mrs. Mills, told me that her students were coming in her class saying, "Hola, Senora Mills." So they were already using it. And I think, we'll work together to do some projects maybe with history over there and English, and it will be so fun for them.
And do they get Spanish names and then French names?
Oh, yes, they all have Spanish names, and it's really hard for me, Dr. Oakley, because I have to remember their Spanish names and their French names and their English names.
Yeah.
So I say, if Senora Quealy, forgets your Spanish name, give me a break. But they were excited. Today they picked their Spanish names, and we said, ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo se llama? Me llamo, mi nombre. And they can speak so authentically at such a young age. It's really exciting.
So Amy, what gave you the love of foreign language?
Oh, that's a great question. Me llamo Amada en español. So the love of foreign language came from my teacher, who I love, Senora Garcia. I'll cry. I loved her so much. She was my freshman Spanish teacher, and immediately I just loved language, but she really pushed me. It's hard. It's hard when you start in 9th grade to become fully bilingual. So I studied Spanish as my minor, undergraduate. I took Spanish for 8 years, and I've traveled. I just got back from Puerto Rico. I've traveled a lot, and I love learning French. Once you learn one language, a second language, it's much easier to acquire a third and fourth language. That's why we think Europeans speak 6 and 7 languages, where we're I'm monolingual, but it's because once you have that exposure to a second language, it makes, especially the Romance languages, much easier to acquire. So now, you know, it has been I took 3 years of French. It's been really easy for me to acquire French as well. So exciting.
So it goes back to a teacher you
Yes,
had and
Senora
just loved it.
Garcia, and I loved her. And she did a lot of fun things with us that I hope to do with my kids, but at a much...
Is she still around here?
She's retired.
Oh, then you need to send her this clip.
Yeah, okay.
When we're done.
I will.
Jeremy, what's the one thing that you could say to parents and kids about your STEM?
One thing I think would be that this STEM program, as we mentioned before, is going to help them become more of investigative thinkers, but also a big part of this that I've been stressing to the kids is perseverance. Is that when we're doing experiments, I stress to them that scientists have taken years, sometimes decades, to solve a scientific formula.
Absolutely.
Like Albert Einstein didn't come up with a theory of relativity overnight. It took him years and years to figure this out. And so I try to stress to the students, when we're doing these experiments, you're gonna fail. You're gonna struggle at first, and you're gonna have to try again and try again. And I tell them, like, when I was showing them how to try and get the balloon from one end of the room to the other, I didn't just throw the balloon and stomp out of the room. I didn't just sit there and stomp and scream. I said, I have to try it again. I have to try it again. And you know what I'm going to do? What all scientists do. We talk to other scientists. We share. That's why we have scientific journals. That's why we write things down. And so in the classroom, I tell them when they come in, we're leaving. We're not students anymore. We're scientists. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to say, hey, class, can I have your ears? And we'll say, scientists? And they'll say, yes. Because we're all scientists. So I stress to them that when we're working, we're collaborating. So I'm hoping that what we can do in this class is not only just learn to work with one another and share ideas, instead of, like, you know, in the typical classroom, it's don't copy off of me, you know. It's like, no, in this classroom, we're sharing concepts. When you see something happening and you're like, oh, that's a good idea, yeah, you work with that person. Or if you see somebody not doing something that you think's not gonna work, be like, you might wanna try this. I'm not sure, I've tried that already and it didn't work for me, but you can still do it. So I wanna build their collaboration and I wanna build their perseverance, so that way when they make a mistake, they don't just give up. They don't ask for help right away. Because I told them, I'm there to be the shepherd. I'm not there to just give them the answers. I was like, they gotta give the answers to me. And so that's what one of the big things I'm hoping that they learn is to persevere through the struggle, and then to really ask questions. So just looking out our classroom window, I'm like, why is it that I have the door open and the fan on right now? Why am I sweating through my shirt right now? Why is there leaves green on the tree right now? Why is the grass green right now? Why is that grass going to be brown later? Why is that sky blue? It's like not just taking things for granted, but actually really questioning and trying to figure out answers.
Nice. And that follows up, I know I mentioned in my opening day speech to everyone that I really want people to think more about the growth mindset, and exactly what you were just saying, not giving up in challenges and persevering and saying, okay, I can't do this, but I will be able to do it down the road, that whole power. That's the growth mindset that we need to instill in kids versus the fixed mindset of taking the balloon and throwing it down and saying, I can't get this, you know. So it's exciting that you really want to learn, because I believe that if you can teach that, then they can persevere at anything and any obstacle that they get faced with in life. And it doesn't even have to be in school, but just a problem that happens outside of life. To learn not to give up is just going to make them a stronger person down the road. So what got you excited about science?
What got me about science? Well, I had science teacher, 7th grade, Mr. Barnum, over at St. John Vianney in Spokane, and Spokane, Washington, Seahawk country. He was an exceptional teacher that really got us excited about it, and actually he was like one of the first teachers I had that brought science into like a real life perspective, and he really got things going for me there. And then in my years in the Forest Service, never even really thinking about like, oh, this is science, but like trying to figure out the dynamics of falling a tree, trying to figure out the dynamics of starting a backburn to stop a fire, or the dynamics of how to put a fire out using dirt, you know, realizing that, oh yeah, mineral soil, the reason, why doesn't mineral soil burn? Oh, dirt doesn't burn because you don't have organic materials in there to start on fire. And so just through that, I just kind of started getting that scientific mindset and being like, oh wow, this is really cool. This is
Yeah.
a lot of fun, and it's, oh my goodness, it's useful, across the board. It's not just one aspect type of thing. And so from there, I just kind of kept rolling with it.
So you both had teacher mentors that kind of sparked your excitement about the classes, and it's time for you guys now to be the teacher mentors to kids and spark the excitement, which is kind of a cool thing, because in teaching, you don't always know if you reach kids, but one of them will come back to you later and say something that they remember that you said in class or taught them in class, and we don't always know right away, but we do definitely impact the kids. And I know I'm biased in West Bridgewater, but you are two wonderful teachers and as part of our wonderful teaching staff that we have. So I'm so excited that we got to get your message out and have people in the community see what's going on in your classrooms and how dedicated and exciting elementary school foreign language and STEM is going to be. So I look forward to being in your class, and maybe during this year, if you don't mind, we'll come in and maybe take some videos of different things, so let me know when things are going on, and then we'll maybe follow up with this at the end of the year and do something again, and maybe even bring some kids on.
That would
and
be fun.
interview kids about,
Share
geez,
what
what'd you
they
like
know.
about foreign language, what'd you like about STEM, and see how it goes. So I'm really excited and happy that you guys could come and join me today.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for being so progressive in implementing these programs, because it means a lot to the students and the community, I think, and teachers as well.
You're welcome. And thank you for viewing into the Superintendent Spotlight. We'll see you next time. Thank you.